Welcome to the Heart of the Equation, where analytical minds explore leadership, professional growth, and the human side of success.
This is the space for business professionals in the STEM field to reflect, grow, and redefine success on their terms.
Together, we'll dive into challenges, transformations, and stories that can help you build an authentic, purpose-driven career.
Let's get it started.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of The Heart of the Equation. In this episode, it's Pragati and I, and we're going to talk about the unspoken challenges of mid-level managers in tech. And this episode would be interesting for you if you were considering moving into a leadership job from a science or tech or engineering, some kind of technical job, expert job, or you have recently moved to one and you notice that it's not as glamorous as it looked and there are challenges. So if you're kind of in the beginning of your leadership journey or want to improve your leadership journey, this episode is going to be interesting for you, especially that Pragati, she moved from a tech job to a leadership position. She's leading a big team. Is that correct?
That's correct, yes.
She leads middle managers. She's been a middle manager, so she knows so much about this. And I also have so much to share from my own corporate time. Things were not didn't look as good as as they did. And also everything I hear from clients and people about these challenges. So let's just start this conversation. Pragati, would you like to, is there anything you want to start with, or shall I start with questions?
Absolutely. No, let's. I also have a couple of anecdotes, or if you may kind of say things around the fact that one of the things is that this whole mid-management layer or level is really the largest one. If you actually look from a broad perspective, everybody at some point on, and very quickly you get into this mid sort of a career level, and like midlife crisis, you have mid-career crisis.
Yeah.
And it happens all the time. It's happening all the time when you are in sort of these sort of situations. I mean, I have gone, just for a little bit of a background for our listeners, I have gone from a completely IC role, which is an individual contributor, writing code at your desk, just being there, writing code, compiling it again, debugging, then compiling it, and then running it and things like that, to now where I handle really large teams. And not everybody, of course, if I have like a 200-person team, not everybody directly reports into me, but you have these hierarchies that build. So I really started at the bottom, where I was this one person probably being managed by someone like me today, who had like different layers kind of built in. And I was responsible for, say, coding one interface or like building something. So yeah, I mean, it's a very, very interesting conversation for me, because I have kind of gone through it. I'm sure, Sara, you went through it, where you kind of moved up. And it's a conscious decision, I would say. I don't know, how is it for you? Maybe talk about it a little bit. But for me, it was a very conscious decision to move from an individual sort of a role to kind of management. How was that for you when you were, when you were still in the corporate world?
Yeah, this is actually very interesting. What we also were talking about it before. It's a conscious decision. It's like maybe I had a conversation with my father-in-law a little while ago that how things were 50 years ago, 40 years ago. You were a very good, because he's an engineer. You were a very good engineer, very good tech person, and you were so good at your job, you would perform so well, you would be promoted to a manager at some point. And that is the picture a lot of us have, maybe from our parents or elders. And that was also my understanding back then. My job always had a little bit of management in it. It was like in the supply chain management, you do a bit of project management and you know a bit of engineering. So it was something I just knew that I like to work with people and this is the direction I want to go. But the closer I got to it and I saw the nature of a team, how it functions, how you manage expectation, I noticed, it's not as fun as I thought. But for me, it was also like I knew this is the path I want to go. And I also noticed that just being a good engineer is not going to guarantee you a leadership kind of job. You need to do certain things, you need to network with the right people, you need to connect with the right people. You also need to show your people skills. And of course, you also need to be really engaged with the culture of where you are. But then, right, I quit my job to start my own business at some point. So I kind of got out of that. But then what happened was that I talked to a lot of people who are on this journey as a leadership
Hmm.
coach. I
Hmm.
is like also part of so I'm more hearing a lot of stories these days. Most of my stories are from a few years ago, but I could see a lot of people think they've done such a good job, why they're not being rewarded with the next team leadership position. That's one thing.
Yeah.
And I also see this type that people are kind of, they start the conversation with their line manager or whoever that is like is the key person in moving them forward. And the conversation starts in, they're not being said no, but then it takes like 2 years, 3 years, and then
Yeah.
suddenly they see the position they were kind of being looking forward to is given to someone else outside. It's so disappointing when it happens, and
Yeah.
they're wondering. So there are a lot of things I see people are experiencing. They don't know, why is it happening to me? Why am I not getting that job? So this is kind of like the topics that comes to my mind. So maybe you can share something.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, and I so agree with you. And this I think would have somewhere happened to me quite a few
Mm.
times before I realized that, I had to take matters into my own hand. Otherwise, this journey was not gonna just be so straightforward that, yeah, you do like junior level roles for a while, and then you automatically become a manager, say 4 years, 5 years, 7 years down the line, whatever that, whatever the path of that company be. It really was a very conscious decision. And I will probably reflect back on my journey. I was at SAP Labs, things were going great. And it was the time, especially in India at that point in time, I was still in India at that time. And people were either they were going in the tech architect sort of a path, or they were going into management, but there weren't as many fruitful opportunities internally. So some of them would quit, or some of them would kind of look at different teams and things like this. And for me, it was a very conscious decision that I did not want to become a technical architect, because while I love tech and I love what programming can do, right? You can actually create something which is not there. It's the same feeling when you build a jigsaw puzzle or when you do the Legos. It gives you a lot of satisfaction. Or even if you're assembling IKEA furniture, it gives you that sort of, because you build something. So it's a great feeling when you write a program, you execute it and it works, and it kind of fits the puzzle where there's a big picture and your client is really satisfied. So all of this was great, but I really, really loved being with people. And it took me really long. So it took me like I think more than 1.5 or 2 years. I also was a new mother at that point in time when I wanted to do this switch. And there are a lot of factors, especially with us women, that kind of play a part. We have our families, we must be doing something else. It's not a very selfish move at all times that we do what we want the moment we want it. So I remember that I worked really hard. I had to reject a lot of offers when I finally started looking out. And I got the role of an assistant manager at Johnson and Johnson, which kind of put me in a position where I was finally like free. And I think I said it in the last podcast where we just spoke about me.
Yeah.
It was like that kind of really changed my life, because I think it was a conscious decision that this is what I wanted to do. Of course, you will never be 100% sure of what, like, okay, I aspire to do A, B, C. You're probably going to get A and B, and that's okay. But if you're completely on a different track and then you don't want to be there, you really have to do something about it. It has to be a conscious choice.
Yeah, exactly. I can resonate with that because when I look back, I made that choice too. I even like moved back to a department. It looked like I've moved to my old job, but that was like with a plan because moving back to that team would give me also the opportunity to grow in this
Yeah.
area from my previous position, which was more of a sourcing manager. I didn't have direct people responsibility in the sourcing manager job, but I mean, I was doing a lot. You're in a position of leadership, but I kind of could see that, okay, you need kind of this bridge job or whatever you call it, this kind of job that connects you with the next thing. And it happens with, I think, with every career reinvention. It's not unless you're super connected and you're very influential, not a privilege everyone has. It's not that you kind of say from tomorrow I want to be this, and then it happens. Sometimes you have to go through a path and do other things, which sometimes might look quite strange or irrelevant even, but that is how you get to that. But as you said, it's a conscious decision. No one hands it over to you because you're so good and you've done a perfect job. Unfortunately,
Absolutely.
it is not the case these days. By being a perfect technical expert, you're not going to be suddenly promoted to something, which annoys me.
Yeah, of course. But like, I want to flip this question to you now as a coach. What if someone wants to really do this and has been trying this for 2 to 3 years? But maybe the path that they've drawn for themselves, maybe that's not the right journey they're taking. I mean, they're just unsuccessful. What would be your advice to people like that? Because I'm sure in our audience or the listeners today, there might be, because I know there are a lot of resilient women out there and they are trying a lot to kind of change their circumstances. But what if things are not working? What should they be doing then?
Yeah, that's a good question. Actually, some people are very aware that things are not working, so they're not in this dreamy mood. This is actually a thing. Some people don't want to admit that what I'm doing is not working. So they're not really changing their ways. They just try whatever they think
Yeah.
in their tunnel vision, whatever. But something I notice is that most of the time is the behavior of that person. They're doing something that is sabotaging this journey, and it's it's usually, sometimes they have another goal that is kind of competing with their leadership goal. So they want two things, something in their lives. It might also be a problem that needs addressing or a need something. So there is something else that is taking the energy, and subconsciously they are not doing everything that would help with that leadership position. So it sometimes is that. I've also seen people who are, this is also very common among entrepreneurs, I think applies to everyone, that you want a big goal, but then at the same time, you're scared of that success. You're scared of your image. When you visualize yourself in that successful position, it suddenly looks scary. So what I've also heard when we dig into that, like, if I become that team leader, my life is going to be very stressful. If I become a more successful business person, my life is going to be very stressful. I'm already stressed. I already have so much going on in my life.
Yeah.
So this, they have this internal conversation in the head, and then they do over all the things that sabotages this success image. Like, for example, they do not connect with the right person, or when they do not show their confidence. They do not really build a sort of a professional identity. I don't want to say personal brand, but something that shows that you know your stuff, you're good at your job. Maybe for some person is social media or LinkedIn or writing an article, running events, something like that. They just avoid that because they are scared of their successful version.
My
It's so
God,
weird. Yeah.
that is so, I mean, that's like a light bulb moment for me, that you can actually be scared of the goal
Yeah. I've
at times.
experienced that myself too in different things.
Yes.
Sometimes you don't exactly know how it would look like in a good way. Like, you might think, oh, if I'm already stressed, if I get promoted, I would be even more stressed. Look at this team, this 10 people I have to lead, and then I have to report to this big boss who's a very scary person. All of this comes to their head, and then like, no, I can't do it. This is too much. But
Yes.
what is happening is that they are not at that moment able to see there are ways that you can do things in a peaceful, graceful manner. There is support system that you can benefit
Yeah.
from. There are a lot of things you can do to do this in an easy way, let's say, easier way. It's
Yeah,
never
and
easy.
and I think people shouldn't shy away from asking for help, because
Yeah.
I learned this lesson, and I think I learned it really like the hard way, is that it's okay to ask for help. It's
Yeah.
absolutely fine, not just from your peers and colleagues, and sometimes even externally. You might need a therapist because there might be something else going on. You might
Yeah.
need a coach that gives you that extra push and kind of helps you visualize what success could look like, or maybe you are addressing this journey in a different light and you just need more perspective, or you need like a mindset shift. So I think it's important to kind of acknowledge and then ask for help. If there's something that you've been doing for, say, a couple of years and you're not seeing enough growth in that particular plan, I think it's always a good idea to kind of ask for acknowledging it, first of all,
Yeah.
uncovering what's going on, and then ask. I mean, there's enough and many people. I mean, even if you just go to your friends at times, that kind of helps so much. And just a supportive community, if nothing else, like that support system kind of puts you out of that like flight or fight mode, right? I feel like that
Yeah.
that really,
Yeah.
really helps as well.
Yeah. I
Let's
totally.
maybe also switch towards why this, it's also important to kind of bust the myth of like maybe kind of glamorizing management or leadership roles. They are hard.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of exhaustion, fatigue, burnouts that we're hearing of especially in the mid-management layer.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Yeah, it would be interesting if you also share some insight around that because it's a skill, I think. I think there's a lot of expectation management
Yes.
involved in these positions. You also, when someone, wants to move into these roles, I think they also need to really ask themselves, why do I want to be a leader? Is it for my ego to look big, like the big boss? Or do I really want to do something here? What am I really looking for? And there is this part that they just want the ego. We have so many of them. They just want to achieve, achieve, achieve to show off. And there is the type that actually really wants to help others, want to move an initiative. They have a vision. They have an idea to push for. So yes, sometimes I think, yeah, having that kind of system really helps to have like a compass that this is the direction I'm moving towards.
Absolutely. I think visualizing and sometimes you're a little bit scared to even visualize because you feel like you could jinx it. At least I am like this at times. I don't
Yeah,
even want to
me
imagine
too.
it because otherwise it won't come true. But
Yeah.
honestly, it's so I was talking to someone who was helping me with public speaking once, and she said to me that visualize every meeting, like because I do these webinars and I do workshops and things like that. You do the same. And I said, I feel that sometimes my voice is like, shaky and stuff like that. And she said, visualize the entire meeting, like A to Z, exactly how you would drive it without any people, without any camera, without no nothing. But just visualize that whole thing. That means you've already done it once.
Yeah.
And was so powerful. And it's the same thing. Visualize what that role would look like. If you can't visualize, look at people around you who are already in this role. Talk to them. I think that breaks the glamour element of it a little bit because
Yeah.
it's a very real role. It's like, oh, I'm going to have this and I'm going to have that and these benefits and perks, and people will look up to me and my LinkedIn profile will say that. And like, I will have 200 comments congratulating me on my new promotion. These are very temporary moments. You
Yeah.
actually have to live through that role and visualize that part. And also at some time, then you will also realize maybe that's not what you want. It's important to kind of realize what you really, really want. So visualization kind of really helps over there.
Yeah.
My personal experience, I should share it because that would definitely bust some myths here. Is like it's one of the most challenging levels you can be in because the expectation is like you are in between. There are so many people looking up to you because you are the role model, you are sitting in this position, and they need direction. They need direction of what they need to do best, what do they need to do next, what's going to best serve them for their careers, how are they kind of going to grow, how do we make sure that we are keeping our clients satisfied, whatever that may be in the context of whatever career you're in. So it's a lot of pressure because you have the responsibility, all of these people who report into you. And you're kind of the role model, and you need to kind of drive that conversation in front of the client, in front of your bosses, in front of different stakeholders that may be there. And then there's this other level, which is above you. There's always going to be someone above,
Yeah, of
even if you're
course.
a
Big
CEO.
companies, yeah,
Yeah,
for
yeah.
sure.
So you're never going to get rid of that. So, and the people above you, their expectations is to grow through you. So you need to really, really work hard to make them look really, really good.
Yeah.
And hence the expectations over there are also really, really high. And it's how you kind of balance it. Can you ignore any? No, no way. Because I see a lot of people, they kind of only serve the upper management because that kind of guarantees their growth.
Exactly, yeah.
But then is that the right way? Because then you are not taking the responsibility of these people who are looking up to you, which means you are kind of, the failure is kind of coming. It might be coming slowly, but it will eventually catch up.
Yeah.
So that's not a great plan either. So how do you balance this? And it's through a lot of doing and learning and doing and learning and doing. And you can't go to a school and be taught, hey, how do I manage this kind of a pressure? It's only when you really do it. And of course, leadership programs help, the perspectives of your colleagues, your supporters, your mentors, coaches. It helps a lot, but it's how you actually use it later. Because you can go to 10,000 trainings and then just be the person that you are, then nothing's going to change.
Yeah, yeah. That was a good point that you mentioned. I can also really resonate with that. This balance of your career progress as that middle manager, because most of the people who move through these middle manager jobs, they are looking up. They're the type that wants, most of the time, they're the type that wants like a better a promotion. And then protecting your team, because sometimes, things also thrown at you. Protecting your team, taking care of your team, motivating them, engaging them at the same time, thinking of your career, which is mostly about satisfying the upper level. So I've seen a lot of course, it has to do with the company culture, like how things are, what behaviors are common. But I've also often seen even with my own bosses, some of them are so focused on their career development, moving up the ladder, that they totally forget they have to protect their teams because of the company culture that we were in. And then there are those who are so protective of their team, so like so much empathy, taking care of people, but they do not have that power and influence when it comes to the upper level management. So some initiatives actually don't move forward. So it is quite challenging.
It is very challenging. And it's always this balancing act where, hey, of course you need to take care of your team, but you also need to take care of yourself. It always goes back to that point. Why are you here? You also want to do well. You want to get your next promotion. You want to get your next bonus, your hike. You want to move up the ladder as well. And it's important that you take care of that ambition that you have.
Yeah.
You're also not in the business of, this is not this is not like a NGO or like a charity organization that you're in. Let's be honest. We are all here to, kind of grow, make more money, do really well in our careers, feel really challenged, accomplish the goals that we set out.
Yeah.
But a great team also pushes you forward. Just like you're pushing that guy forward, the great team also pushes you forward. So it's a balancing act. You need to really, really prioritize what's where your team. Sometimes you need to leave your teams as well, because if you are always helping out, then this becomes a habit.
Yeah.
So sometimes you need to give that freedom, and it's almost cold turkey at times where you say, no, I think you can do this. And you do it in a way where you motivate them enough and empower them in a way where they feel confident. Yeah, I think I can do this. And if there weren't bosses like that in my life, I would always rely on, hey, what do you think I should do here? But you need these kind of mentors. And I think I really learned that very late, because I always wanted to provide that extra, do that extra amount of hand holding.
Yeah.
Kind of almost like bringing them up to speed on things. But I realized, no, it's important that you empower your teams and allow them to think and use their use their abilities.
Yeah,
So it's a balancing act. It comes with a lot of learning and doing. And
exactly. Yeah.
you won't do it till you are in it.
Yeah, you can go to leadership training for a year and try all of things on, on case studies, all of that. But human behaviors, I think we are not functioning in isolation. It applies to business too. Everything you say about team right now. Okay, I work with other people to help me with my business, but so much of it is like we lead clients. So for me, it's like clients don't just hire you. All of this hand-holding style of support that applies to clients too. And sometimes we rely too much on our common sense. We have to learn it.
Yeah.
We have to have someone who shows us the new perspective, and then we have to experience it, experiment with it, see how it works in action. And then I think it's also important to observe ourselves. Like, how did I do last time in that situation? What was the learning? Especially like when crisis happens, when things, I come from logistics and supply chain. It was always like some kind of crisis surprises
Always.
that and then suddenly people were different. People have different versions of themselves in these kind of
Yeah,
situations.
you have to actually see how people react in adverse situations to
Yeah,
really know their character.
exactly. Suddenly another side of everyone comes out. Everyone has their own survival one is a mechanism. One is like a
Someone shouts, someone's panicked,
yeah,
someone's calm, no matter what happens, someone's patient,
yeah.
someone's
Someone
kind of using their,
disappears.
yeah. Yeah, someone disappears. Yeah, 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 absolutely.
It's quite crazy actually, but I've noticed in all these years, I mean, I grew up with this picture of I love to help, and help for me was parenting and saving someone. So I
Hmm.
also did so much micromanaging in that was my style. I know it's not very good, but I have to admit I didn't know better. So I did a lot of too much hand holding,
Yeah.
too much of doing it for them because they can't do it. That I've done. I'm so guilty of that, doing the job for the team, saving them from situation and not letting them sort themselves out and find a solution and tap into their resourcefulness. That was my version of helping, and I thought it was good, but it was so draining and it became impossible to continue. This is also, I think, what makes a lot of people scared of this kind of positions, because they're thinking this person who's leading a team of, I don't know, 25, 35 is doing all the jobs for them, but it's not like that.
It's not like that. Yeah, it's not
It
like
wouldn't
that.
work. So you need to change our image of that and learn how to help every person be more resourceful and lead.
But I've also noticed that they kind of respect you more when
Yeah.
there's more autonomy given or when there's more empowerment of your teams. They also, maybe initially that's a very uncomfortable feeling, right? Because still yesterday you were like kind of holding my hand and, taking me up up the slide or the ladder, and we were doing everything together. But now that you let me be, because you think that I'm ready to do this on my own, it's an uncomfortable feeling. I mean, we've faced it from our bosses as well, where we were just let go, and or it was so normal that we didn't even realize that we needed nobody's support at some point in time. So I've seen both the ends of how different people react in different situations. But it also kind of, micromanaging is never, and I never really micromanage. I think micromanagement is really, really, like, I think is very toxic, especially
Yes.
when you don't let someone be, uh,
Yeah.
because then they lose their confidence completely. I think our how we are talking about this, Sarah, is more because we have this parenting gene in us, where we
Yeah.
want to kind of hold everybody's hand and kind of bring them to that same level, and making sure that they learn the process and they learn whatever, whatever task they are put at. It's a very different feeling, but also we need to realize that we are not playing the role of mothers at work. We
Yes.
are responsible for the position that we are in. When you talk about micromanagement, it's like continuously asking an example like messaging. I've had a boss who would message me every 10 minutes, is it done, is it done, is it done? I mean, what would that do to the confidence of anybody?
Yeah.
Because there's no trust left then. That's not the kind of behavior that we are saying model. And
Yeah.
if you are doing that, then you are not helping anybody. You are probably uh, spoiling that relationship little by little by little till it totally breaks.
Yeah.
So one has to be really very careful on how you kind of approach topics where you know everything, you're very passionate, this has to be done, there are deadlines, there's stuff to be met, there's money riding on this and stuff like that. But how do you really deal with situations which are challenging?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Micromanaging has its name on it. It's not leading, it's managing.
Yeah.
Yeah, gosh, this topic is so interesting. What's one last thing I want to ask you is like, because that was also one of the topics I struggled with. When you have a team that is not engaged, doesn't
Mm,
care so much, because I've been in the situation that you're young, you just moved, you want to achieve some targets, but the team is like partially in retirement. One just had a child, thinking of their maternity leave. There are a lot of that. They have other things in their head and they can't care less about the
yeah.
targets. So
Yeah.
what would you do in this situation?
I was actually in one of my jobs, I was the new kid on the block,
Yeah.
which meant I was not just younger from this particular team, it was actually a finance IT team. And not just was I younger, I was the only woman. I was younger than all the people in this team. And they had all been in the organization for 10 years plus. And I am this new joinee, and I am responsible for all of the deliverables of our team together. And you will not believe it, how much non-cooperation I have kind of that I have gone through at that time. People would start speaking another language so that I don't understand what's going on. And things like, not coming back and providing me the update that I asked for. And sometimes you need to be tough. Sometimes
Yeah.
it's important that you draw your lines, you draw the boundaries, you escalate if you really have to. But for me, how I really worked on it was by kind of really building this trust internally. Uh,
Mm,
a lot of one, of course, it needs a lot of time. You need to invest a lot of time. For me, my mantra is that always start inside out. Of course, there is a solution that you need to deliver to your client, to your boss, to whoever the external party is that you're responsible for. But you need a team to accomplish that solution or provide that deliverable. And I always look at things internally. How can we make things better inside before we even report something outside? And that's how I've always worked. Like, if we are the vendor team or if we are a particular team and we have to report to someone. So it takes a lot of time, but you kind of build like a relationship so that trust starts coming in, that actually she's here for the greater good. She
mm,
wants all of us to kind of come together and report or align on a singular goal. So that kind of really, really helped me, but it took a long time.
yeah.
It takes a long time to kind of win the trust. When
Yeah.
you start on, we've already written you off.
Yeah.
It starts off like that. It was almost like a movie happening to me. That I was like, oh my God, I think I've seen this movie or read this in a book. But I was actually going through all those emotions where, everyone's gone. There's no one who waited for you for lunch.
Yeah.
there's there's just like, no, they're talking in another language, completely disregarding what you're saying. But then you have to kind of be firm and draw the line and kind of still maintain the balance that, hey, I am responsible for the work you do, and you are kind of responsible to uh, report back and tell me if there's a problem, and we will sort it out together. So I mean, this is what I did, and I
Yeah.
think it worked. It took a long time, but it worked. I think it was 3 or 4 months till we came to a point where we could at least have a coffee together. People could come up to me if there was a challenge. We were working together and doing presentations in front of the client. And it seemed like the team and I were in sync because it was not there.
Yeah. Hmm. That's interesting. I like what you also shared about having a mantra. I think it's very helpful to everyone to find their own style of leadership, own style of problem solving. Everyone has their own thing based on their learnings and experiences. for me, this was something, now my mantra is lead with compassion, and compassion is not always being nice.
Yes.
It's about being kind, doing what is for the good of everyone. But in moments that things get like, I get annoyed by something or something doesn't happen the way I wish, that is my personal thing. You have a goal, it's not achieved, and you see someone didn't care enough. I always have to like pause and see like, really see it from the perspective of that person. For me, that is my compass. And you also said for you is like lead from the within, which is so true, because it's people who move the needle. You can't do it on your own. You really need to connect with these people. You need to get their buy-in or whatever, because at the end it's about how you influence people, how you connect with them, and it comes from caring for humans, connecting
Yes,
with humans.
absolutely. I mean, compassion and having that. I mean, we don't need any kind of sympathy, but we all need to be like very empathetic people.
Yes.
Because put yourself in the position of another person, or just as an example, the example that I gave, maybe one of them was really, really not happy that this position was given to an external candidate, like we mentioned previously, because he or she was about to get this. And it's for no fault of yours, but it's stemming out from something which is absolutely true for this person. They have worked for 10 years in the organization and they were expecting this particular role, and now you went and gave it to someone from the outside. I'm not going to collaborate with them anymore. You had nothing to do with the situation, but you are in it now. So I think empathy plays a really big role, because then you understand a lot of things which do not make any sense otherwise.
Yes. So it's one of the important leadership skills to develop. And of course, some people have it naturally. Some people just need to work on it more.
Yeah. It's a constant learning. I think it's a never-ending learning. And just for anybody who's listening to us today, and you are either kind of in this world that this is a very glamorous role, I think we made that part pretty clear. But definitely you can add a lot of value if you you will realize that once you're in it. But there's it's a steep learning curve when you are here, and you learn every day, and it's very rewarding when you keep learning these things, because it's beautiful to learn so much about the human mind.
Yes. And it applies to everything, also to people who want to start their own businesses. That's the same thing. It's a bit of a different dynamics, but at the end, I think it's always the question to be asked is like, am I doing this for my ego to just be the boss, be more important, or there is something deeper behind it that can actually keep me going and help me develop in this? Because even in starting a new business, if your ego is like, everyone looks at me, or I'm going to prove somebody wrong, or it's not going to work. It's about leadership, either in a role or in a business, and it's about learning certain skills and being able to work with other humans, manage expectations, and work for a better good. So that's all I can add to that. I know this is a topic we might even come back to it and revisit it, hopefully, if we receive some more specific
Send us
questions.
messages, let us know in the comments, what would you like us to talk about? Do you want to go deeper into this topic? And we will be sure to bring in another episode on this.
Yes, and also we have created a form that's anonymous. If you are not comfortable posting publicly about it, you're listening to this, you have a topic you want us to talk about, but you don't want to post because maybe you don't want your bosses or colleagues to see that. We know how it feels, it's normal, it's okay. So that's why we have an anonymous form. You can also submit your questions through that. We'll share it here later. Thank you so much. Thank you to everyone who was listening. Thank you, Pragati, for sharing your insights. Is there anything you want to add before we say goodbye?
Nothing. I mean, I really enjoyed this conversation that we had. Thanks a lot, Sara, as well, for her insights. And we will see you the next time.
Yes,
Bye.
thank you so much. Bye. Thanks for listening to The Heart of the Equation. If this episode has sparked something for you, we'd love to hear about it.
Be sure to subscribe, leave a review, and connect with us on LinkedIn and Instagram to continue the conversation.
And if you know someone who is navigating their next career step, share this episode with them. It could be exactly what they need.
We see you next time as we explore more about leading with purpose, resilience, and authenticity.
Let's keep growing together.